So good afternoon, everyone. It's always so bad when you have to wait for the host, right? So I do apologize. I was just trying to get some more coffee because I'm supposed to be speaking a little more. You might be bored of me, but yeah, I'll try to still contribute to one of the panels. But before I do, and before we get to the very last one, I have a pleasure to welcome the third panel of the day, which is called Featuring the European Research Area. And we have 3 countries currently represented by 4 people. We have Greece, Luxembourg, and Poland. We were supposed to have Estonia as well with us, but the science counselor of the Embassy of Estonia has had some problems with the flight. She was supposed to be traveling from the UK over to DC, but her flight was canceled due to bad weather conditions yesterday, and then she managed to rebook it, but she landed at noon in New York today, so there was actually not a possibility for her to make it on time. But I'm sure that you guys are going to manage, and it's going to be a very interesting and very nice panel. The only thing I wanted to say is that these countries have been featured already in our quarterly newsletters, because Euraccess North America does have 4 quarterly newsletters a year, and in each and every newsletter we try to feature a European country with their research landscape information, funding opportunities, also information for incoming researchers to the particular country. So today we are going to expand on that and add the angle of science communication. And without further ado, I would like to introduce you to our moderator, Mr. Dietrich Fenner, who is the director of the German Academic International Network. Dietrich?
Thank you so much, Vicky. You almost did my job, Great. Dima, Vicky, thanks so much for having me here, because it's a great risk. I'm a baby to the diaspora, science diaspora. I just started a week ago, so yeah, I'm the new boy in town, So thanks for having me, and thanks for the trust. Yeah, and thank you for the introduction that sadly Helen can't be here, so we are not traveling today to Estonia, which is sad, but we will do that another time. But yeah, thanks so much for coming back after the lunch break. I know that's the hardest time in the day, Luckily, we are at the French embassy, and we had a decent, nice lunch and not heavy German food. So you can't just disappear in the schnitzel nap. You must be refreshed and open for new input, and we will provide that. So let's keep up as we did earlier this day, that we have the presentations here, and then we have Q&As in the end. And yeah, and as Vicky already said, we are learning more about the research areas in Greece, Luxembourg, and Poland. And we start with Greece, and we start with Theodosios Vallas. He is right next to me, and he is the Minister Counselor for Economics and Commercial Affairs at the Embassy of Greece here in DC. He graduated from the University of Glasgow, Scotland, and also from the National School of Public Administration in Greece. So enjoy your ride to Greece.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank the organizers, first of all, and the French Embassy for hosting this event. And after 4 years that I've been here, it's the first time that I would speak for something positive. And Greece really needs this positive attitude after the 4 years of crisis, economic crisis, refugee crisis. This is what I've been used to talk about. And I would like to thank you also for giving me the opportunity to educate myself, because we don't have the luxury in the Embassy of Greece to have a science counselor. We don't have the luxury of having a transport counselor. We don't have the luxury of having a financial counselor. So we, me and my colleagues, we are obliged to cover these events into the best of our ability. But I must say, this comes as a priority. And I will explain why it comes as a priority. It's a difficult subject for me to cover because we belong to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The competent authority in Greece for the education and the research and development is the General Secretariat of Research and Development, and the funding comes from 3 ministries. It comes from the Ministry of Development, the Ministry of Education, and the Ministry of Agriculture, concerning the agricultural research. Of course, you understand how difficult it is to coordinate and how difficult it is to convey the information between these ministries. But I think we're doing quite well. Forgive me, I will stick to the, although I know that the reading is sometimes very boring, I will have to stick to my text. So it was a surprise for me from from the information we gather, that research and development in Greece constitutes of 0.99% of the GDP, almost 1% of the GDP. And I was surprised because when the crisis erupted in Greece, I knew that research and development constituted less than maybe 0.1, 0.2%. So in the years of the crisis, that trend went up. On the other hand, when the crisis erupted, Greece was spending 3.5% of the GDP in defense. Now this has gone down to 2%. So in 2016, the trend continued upward, according to the provisional data published by the National Documentation Center and transmitted to Eurostat. Greece spent 1.7 million euros, an increase of 29.3 million euros as compared to 2015. The research and development intensity indicator, which represents research and development expenditure as a percent of the GDP, was, as I told you, 0.99. The funding was coming mainly from the public. In 2016, the public poured 737 million, which represented 42% of the total. The public funding supported research and development activities in all sectors, and it was the main source of funding for higher education and the public sector. The second sector, a significant increase was recorded in the second sector, which was the largest funding. It was the business and the enterprise sector, which provided 691 million euros. The largest share, 633 million euros, was invested in research and development performed by the businesses themselves, while the remaining funding was activities in the higher education sector. The public sector and the private non-profit institutions was accredited for 2.2 million euros. And the third was the European Union, which has increased during the recent years due to the implementation of Horizon 2020, the current EU programming framework for research and innovation. In 2016, the European Union provided 207 million euros for research projects in all sectors, highlighting the high level of competitiveness of the Greek organizations. 5 of the top 50 research organizations that received funding through EU Framework Program for Research and Innovation Horizon 2020 are from Greece. This surprised me as well, because Greece is about 1.5% of the European GDP. So if you break that as a percentage, we got 10% of the funding of the European Union. The capacity of the Greek research institutes to conduct excellent research is also reflected in the good performance in terms of outstanding scientific publications. Since the 2013, the General Secretariat, which I told you is the competent body, supported by the National Council for Research and Technologies, has endeavored to develop a long-term visionary national strategy for research, which has built it on the competitive position of Greece in specific areas at the EU and international level, and will maximize its potential through research and development investments on strategic areas of national priority, identified on the basis of the principles of the smart specialization, fostering innovation and entrepreneurship. Though this strategy, the General Secretariat aims to increase public and leverage private and research and development funding, highlighting the pivotal role of research and investment as building blocks of innovation, facilitating the translation of national research and innovation policy objectives into specific actions, boosting the internationalization of Greek research and increasing competitiveness at the regional, national and international level. The key objective of the national strategy for research and a long-term challenge of our country is to set the knowledge triangle, education, research, innovation, and the production and exploitation of knowledge as major priority in order to overcome the current economic crisis, address societal changes, and contribute to the restructuring of the Greek economy. The above changes will be addressed through three main policy pillars. Pillar 1, growth based on the knowledge and specialization. Pillar 2, excellence in research and development of the human research potential. And Pillar 3, societal changes. The current challenging economic climate intensifies the need for intelligent strategic planning based on substantial engagements of the stakeholders from the public and the private sector, allowing the emergence of innovative spillover effects and enhancing competitiveness through the new product and services. The strategic planning process focuses research and innovation investments in key priority areas, builds on existing strengths, competitive advantages and emerging excellence, supports innovation, and aims to increase the private sector demand for research and development. At the national level, the national strategy includes area of focus for investments in research and innovation. There are 8 areas that we focus: the agro-food, energy; the third, environment and sustainable development; fourth, health and pharmaceuticals; fifth, information and communication technologies; sixth, transport and logistics; seventh, materials and construction; and eighth, tourism, culture and creative industries. The crisis helped Greece to set up clear priorities. The General Secretariat has set up a national strategy and a national roadmap for research infrastructures, taking into account the orientation set up by Europe 2020 strategy and its 2 flagship initiatives, the Innovation Union and the Digital Agenda, as well as priorities identified through the Smart Specialization Strategy. The National Roadmap for Research Infrastructure signals a long-term commitment of the Greek government for systematic support of strong research and innovation hubs in Greece, striving for the development of research infrastructure of more than national relevance in highly competitive and innovative scientific and technological areas, which will allow the Greek research ecosystem to be shaped into a getaway for global research challenges. Based on the EU 2016 Industrial Research and Development Investment Scoreboard, 5 Greek companies, one more than the previous year, feature among the top EU companies for research and development spending. I have the companies, I'm not going to read them to you, but they're available if you want to. Greece also has 3 university business incubators and 6 science and technological parks. And as a conclusion, coming to the scientific diaspora. Here I don't need the text, because due to my grief, I just learned that a byproduct of the crisis we had, it was the continuous bleeding of specialized personnel and educated people in Greece, in my country. 450,000 scientists left Greece. It's our first export product. And the trend is continuing. So that is why I said it's, for us, it's a priority to build the circumstances so these educated people will have the ability to come back home. In the United States, we have 7. Although we are a small country, we are very rich when it comes to the diaspora. But the difference from the diaspora we had in the 40s and the 50s is that in this year, in the 2010, we lost the best of our country, and we still keep losing. So we have 7 scientific communities, 6 scientific communities, 6 scientific communities in the United States, and it's our role at the embassy to coordinate, communicate, and work with you in order to make it possible for the future, the near future, to make the circumstances for all these people to come back home. Thank you.
Yeah, Theodorus, thank you for the input, and just a private notice, I would be very happy to do research in Greece. I did studies abroad in South Africa, and I can just tell you how much it helped me, you know, to be in a country with nice weather and warm, welcoming people, as Greek people are. So thank you for that. I learned a lot, and that will continue when I take you all into a plane and we are flying up north to Luxembourg, a fellow neighbor from Germany, and I will introduce Veronique Dockendorf to you. She's here for 1.5 years, Deputy Chief of Mission to the Embassy of Luxembourg here in DC. Before, she was in Luxembourg the Deputy Political Director of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and even before, she was the first secretary at the mission of Luxembourg to the UN in New York. So she studied history, international relations, and political science in Strasbourg and Paris, and she describes herself as a generalist. It's your floor.
Thank you very much. Very happy to be here. As you heard from my bio, there's not much science in there. So I am even more in the similar position than Theodosius of not being a big expert up here in front of you. And I had this opportunity to educate myself about research in Luxembourg, and I'm happy to share with you what I found. And I had sort of underestimated the size of this screen looming large behind me now and being empty. I'm sorry that I don't have a presentation, but I'll stand ready to share material with you after if you're interested. Maybe to just give you a quick facts and figures about Luxembourg, because I realize that you might not be very familiar with this small country. We are about 600,000 people. As Dietrich said, we are a neighbor of Germany, but then also France and Belgium, so we sit right there in the middle of Europe. We're about the size of Rhode Island here in the US, to give you a comparison size-wise. And what maybe defines us most is that of these about 600,000 people, almost half are not Luxembourgers. 47% are non-Luxembourgers, which makes us, I think, in Europe the most diverse population. People living in Luxembourg are of 170 different nationalities, in fact. Many are Europeans. For example, we have about 100,000 people of Portuguese origin, just to give you an example. So it's a small country that has an economy that was long built on industry, on the steel sector, and then was hit by the steel crisis. And then we headed into banking and financial affairs, and then were hit by the financial crisis. So now the government is very much into trying to diversify the economy and not be too reliant on one particular sector. And research policy is an important factor here. Research policy is supposed to contribute to our transition to a knowledge-based society and to strengthen innovation so that it can drive sustainable socio-economic development and, as I said, economic diversification. So public funding for research is very much intended to strengthen certain key focus areas, key sectors. For example, logistics or clean technologies, bio and health technologies, automotive components, and general ICT. Most recently, we have started to look into space and to start developing a space hub in Europe, in Luxembourg, trying to attract new space companies, so commercial space companies that want to, for example, go into space mining and things like that. Now, more specifically, research. In Luxembourg, we are a very young research center. The first public research center in Luxembourg was opened in 1987, so just 30 years ago. Today, research in Luxembourg is very much centered around our university, which is also a very young university. It was founded in 2003, and it has nowadays 6,200 students and staff from 110 countries. So it's very young, but we're very proud that it ranks 11th in last year's Times Higher Education rankings for young universities. And I understand young means that your university is less than 50 years of age. So we're very happy to be featured in that ranking. So the priorities for research at the university are international finance. We still have an important financial pillar to our economy. ICT security, systems biomedicine, European law, business law, and educational sciences. And maybe just one word about the European law bit. Luxembourg, as you might know, is one of the 3 European Union headquarters, so next to Brussels and Strasbourg. Luxembourg headquarters a number of European institutions, or parts of it. Part of the Commission is there, part of the Parliament, and maybe most importantly, the European Court of Justice. The European Union Court of Justice, and so that creates a bit of a hub for European law in Luxembourg. The university has teams and about 550 PhD students working in 3 faculties, and they have their own research centers. One is the Interdisciplinary Center for Security, Reliability and Trust, so very much looking at ICT security, and then they have a Center for Systems Biomedicine. But then there are also public research centers that have been consolidated in 3 big centers over the past years, striving for some streamlining. Everybody in research in Luxembourg is very much focused on the European realm. We are a very happy member of the European research area, and very happy to work with Euraccess. And I wanted to just, since I have no slides, show you the little guide that Euraccess has made for foreign researchers who want to come to Luxembourg. It's available online. It's very nicely done. Thank you to Euraccess. It has lots of the information I'm giving you now, but also much more, and a lot of links that might be of interest. So I said we consolidated the research landscape. So today there are 3 big institutes. One is the Luxembourg Institute of Science and Technology. The other one is the Luxembourg Institute of Health. And the third one is the Luxembourg Institute of Socio-Economic Research. And then there's the Max Planck Institute for European Law. Now, much of this, I talked about the steel past that we have, the industrial past. Much of this is actually happening in a former steel town in Ash, which is in the south of the country, which was converted from industrial land to a city of science, as we call it in Belval, and so which is a very interesting place to work and study, because it's a very dynamic place, and it brings everybody together there on a very small territory. To give you some key figures in research, we have reached the 1% of GDP mark for public spending on research, and that's growing. The aim is by 2020 to reach a total between public and private research funding of between 2.3 and 2.6% of GDP, and that would be just slightly below the 3% target that the European Union has set. But we've come a long way. I looked at the numbers a little bit back. In 2000, the budget for public research was just 28 million euros, and last year it was around 400 million. So you see that the trend is going in the right way, and the same goes for the number of researchers. In 2015, in the public domain, there were 1,800 researchers, and that number had almost quadrupled in 10 years. In total, when you look at research also in private companies, there's about 5,500 researchers in Luxembourg. And maybe a word about the private sector research. That's for us an important chunk of the research landscapes. We have a number of incentives to private companies to come and locate their R&D activities in Luxembourg. And so, for example, there are companies like Goodyear, the big US tire maker, for example, operates its largest R&D center outside of the US in Luxembourg because of an incentive policy as well. Now, I talked about the university. That's still pretty young and small, but like Luxembourg itself, it is in a greater region of parts of Germany and France and Belgium. And so when we look at what we call the greater region, then you actually have 15 universities in the very near neighborhood with about 25,000 researchers, and we try to somehow be at the center of all of that and network. To talk about funding for a minute, most of the funding for public research goes through the Fonds National de la Recherche, the National Research Fund that was created in 1999, and that administers all that public money that goes into research. And of course, research goes hand in hand with innovation, and so the second important actor in this field is an agency that we call Lux Innovation, that is making the link between research, science, and then business, and trying to translate research into competitiveness, into business proposals, and so on. Now, Victoria had asked me to speak a little bit about research communication, about how we communicate about what is going on in research. So there's this, thanks to your access, but there's also, I looked a bit at the websites of these big agencies, and the National Research Fund has, for example, a program called Science in Society, which has a number of tools to bring science closer to the general population, and also a dedicated funding scheme that's called Promoting Science to the Public, and through which you can, as a scientist in Luxembourg, get money to help promote an exchange between science and society, and allow lay audiences to come into contact with science and research in an interactive way. There are also a number of events that the National Research Fund organizes: a science festival, researchers' days, something called Researchers in School, so trying to early on bring research into the schools and show the kids what they could choose as a career path. And then the National Research Fund has another dedicated funding scheme that they call RESCOM, and that is aimed at funding scientific events and science communication very specifically, to fund lectures, for example, or specific scientific conferences that you need money for. The National Research Fund also has annual awards, 7 different categories, I think, but one category is specifically for an outstanding promotion of science to the public. So every year we reward one scientific project or one group of people who've done a particularly good job at communicating science to the public. And when I researched this, I reached out to the university to hear how they describe their communication. They have, of course, a very active website and social media channels, but they also explained that they try to target, well, depending on the project, they want to communicate on target either the general public, general press, or specialized press. And they use a database of about 60,000 journalists, they told me, and this way, when they send something out and it gets picked up by just a fraction of these journalists, then that still generates quite a bit of coverage in mostly national newspapers, but also European ones and international ones like the New York Times, for example. So this is about what I had prepared. I'm happy to have you ask every question you might never have dared to ask about Luxembourg, including Luxembourg research, but I might have to get back to you and find the information first. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Veronique, for this. You know, it brightened up my picture from Luxembourg, absolutely. And we talked about that before, that Luxembourg has also a big campaign out there to promote the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg in a tourist way. It's an attraction. I saw it a couple of times, and it's on my travel list. Another neighbor of Germany on the other side, on the east side, is Poland, and that's where we are going to now. And it's actually a dual presentation of Grażyna Serbowska and Matthew Stefanski. Grażyna is here in DC already for 14 years, and she's working as a science and technology advisor at the Embassy of the Republic of Poland. She also has a dual PhD, so not only a dual presentation, and also a dual PhD in medical physics from the University of Rennes in France and from Gdansk in Poland. And Matthew Stefanski is press and media and PR advisor to the Embassy of the Republic of Poland in DC, and I guess he is one of the few native US Americans today. So he is actually from New Jersey and graduated from the American University in 2014 with a degree of international relations. So I'm really looking forward to this dual presentation, and it's your floor.
Thank you, Dietrich, for such a warm introduction. Thank you, Vicky and Dima, for organizing this event, and Mina, thank you for hosting us today. And yes, this is our presentation, and I'm really grateful that I can present Poland as a European research area. This
Oh, they don't.
Oh. Maybe.
Yeah.
Sorry about this.
Should switch.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Yes, I would like to start from the World Bank report published this spring. So this report is about our transition from communism to free market economy. So as you can see on the right side, it's a nice curve about our GDP. It's rising about 4% every year, and we would like to keep this growth. So we can keep this growth only with good education, with excellent science, and with innovation. So how we can communicate science? I think the easiest way is to publish science in scientific journals. Here it's a nice chart from Nature Index from 2015, and you can see that Poland has a quite good position in Central and East Europe in this discipline like chemistry, physical sciences, earth and environmental sciences. The orange, it's a color of our country. And because of great, generous European Union support, we can improve our communication in science through the publications. You can see the nice chart from Nature Index 2016, and we leaped 34% between 2012 2015, and because of that, we are among the rising stars. Now I would like to say a few words about main players in Poland to finance the science in Poland. The Ministry of Science and Higher Education with three executive agencies. This is National Center for Research and Development, National Center for Science, and National Agency for Academic Exchange. We have also Polish Academy of Sciences and non-governmental organization Foundation for Polish Science. Now you can see our budget, not our budget, Ministry of Science and Higher Education budget for 2018. It's provisioned $2.6 billion with $364 million from European funds. You can see also that the richest executive agency is National Center for Research and Development. The budget more than $1 billion. NCBR, it's agency established in 2007 to perform tasks related to science, technology, and innovation. And because of that, this is the richest agency. And on their website, you can find the strategic programs, and more information is on the website ncbr.gov.pl. Strategic programs in energy technologies, medicine, IT technologies, new materials, environmental, social economic development, and also security and defense. And how NCBR communicates science, for instance, at the Hanover Messe. This year, Poland was a partner in this this event, and a lot of NCRD beneficiaries there were. Next agency, this is National Center for Science. This agency was established in 2010, and NCN finance basic research. So you can see that they finance arts and humanities, life sciences, and also physical sciences and engineering. Here you can find all programs. You can see that the names are after music pieces like Opus, Sonatina, Sonata, really nice. So, of course, more information on their website, ncn.gov.pl. Now I would like to say a few words about the newest agency. This is Polish National Agency for Academic Exchange. They started October 1st, 2017. And the main goal for NAWA is to support international mobility of students, academics, and researchers, and support the process of internationalization of Polish higher education institution and research institution. next year, 2018, ANAWA will start a new program addressed to Polish scientific diaspora. There are money for Polish scientists who work abroad. You can imagine that about 30,000 Polish researchers work outside of Poland. In Poland, we have about 100,000 of them. So it's about 1/4 workforce in science. So it's a big challenge for ANAWA. One of the most important players in the R&D landscape in Poland is also Foundation for Polish Science. This is non-governmental organization, non-profit institution established 25 years ago after collapse of communism. Foundation distributes also money from European Union funds. On their webpage, you can find schemes for early stage researchers and for senior scientists. I would like to mention also one more thing. There are prizes granted by Foundation for Polish Science. One of them is the Poland US Science Award. This award that was established in 2015, and right now we have a 3rd edition. And if you know Polish and American researchers who cooperate and their research is excellent, please submit to FNP or to AAAS. So I think it's all, and right now I would like to pass the floor to my colleague, Matthew Stefański.
Hello, everyone. As Dietrich said, we decided to have a dual presentation. Today's panel or the program is called Communicating with Sciences. So Grażyna very sufficiently covered sciences, and I'm going to talk a little bit about our communication outreach. But we will take shift the gear a little bit because most of the presentations focused on communicating with the scientific community. And I kind of want to speak about our outreach to the general public about science and about scientific accomplishments. And we at the Polish Embassy have a hope, or we believe that by promoting scientific accomplishments, by promoting important achievements to our online users and extension to the general public, we will hopefully inspire younger generations to also pursue interest in science and an interest in STEM education. So I just collected a few examples most recently of what we at the embassy have promoted and why we decided to select those. So perhaps if you've been in Washington, D.C. for the past few months, you may have heard that in Washington, D.C. there was the first global robotics competition was hosted back in the summer. And we at the Polish Embassy were very proud that Poland finished in 2nd place behind only a pan-European team. So almost like 1st place. And this was a big deal for us because Poland has never before taken part in a first global robotics competition as opposed to several other international teams. And because the students were high schoolers, we felt that they really have a strong potential to go back to Poland and really be ambassadors of robotics and be ambassadors of STEM and kind of light a fire in the high schools of Poland. If you learn to build robots, you too can come to Washington D.C. and win a big prize or whoever the next competition is held. So we thought this was a really great example of Polish youths kind of investing themselves and taking command of their STEM education. And a second one, which is a little bit more long-standing, is Poland's triumph, I guess I can say, at the University Rover Challenge, which takes place every year in the deserts of Utah. And this attracts teams from all over the world as well. In the past 5 to 6 years, teams from Poland have always been in the top 3, often finishing 1st place as well. And this is at the university level. And it just goes to show that there could be continuity in the STEM, and passion for STEM from high school to the polytechnics and universities of Poland. And these, we were fortunate at the embassy to several times host these teams of university students, and they also serve as ambassadors. We get a lot of publicity and a lot of interest in Polish media, and especially in the robots, since the robots are so photogenic, that they really do go back to Poland and promote the importance, but also the interest that can be harbored from studying STEM. But we don't only promote STEM when we have a podium or a medal or a trophy. We also try to seek out different opportunities to highlight and to communicate about science to the general public. And one such opportunity, which I'm sure most of you will aware of, is last month we celebrated the 150th anniversary of the birth of Marie Skłodowska-Curie, a person who needs no introduction. And instead of just focusing on her incredible pioneering work and her inspiration and her Nobel Prizes from the 20th century, we decided to almost bring Marie Curie to life in the form of these, they're not only reenactors really, they're actually scientists from Poland who, in addition to doing laboratory work and having positions at universities in Poland, they have a passion project where they organize workshops for Polish children and senior citizens together to learn about science and to also learn about cross-generational communication. Well, we invited them to Washington, D.C., where they gave about a dozen presentations in the Washington, D.C. public schools, thanks to our partnership with the Embassy Adoption Program. And they really brought Marie Skłodowska-Curie to life. They showed that she's a role model not only for past generations, but for future ones as well. And through their fun, hands-on activities and the scientific method, I think Marie would have been proud how we presented her. So this was also another fantastic opportunity to reach out into communities which may not be familiar with STEM and kind of light a fire, hopefully. And our last effort that I want to highlight before I hand off the microphone is our long-going efforts to promote the forgotten work of Polish mathematicians and cryptologists in cracking the Enigma code, which I know most people here, most people in science are forward-looking people, and we are, of course, as well. But nevertheless, we try to promote what we view as a neglected chapter in history for Polish science, especially Polish mathematicians, and that being their role in cracking the Enigma. Perhaps I'm sure many of you seen the movie Imitation Game, which came out a few years ago about the incredible work of Alan Turing and what he did. And unfortunately, the Polish contribution was merely a footnote in that movie. We're hoping that through our efforts, we'll make that footnote into a chapter, into the first chapter of the Enigma book. And our effort to do that really is a partnership with the scientific community, as displayed in this tweet here when we, last year, or almost 2 years ago now, when AAAS held their meeting in Washington, D.C., we at the Polish Embassy were very fortunate to be able to partner with them and host many of their delegates at our embassy. And we thought, well, what a better opportunity than today to display our fantastic Enigma exhibit. So we put up our Enigma exhibit, and it was very popular. And little did we know that one of the people in attendance that day was a journalist from Great Britain, who a week later went back to England, and she wrote, in the Telegraph, a fantastic article which caught like wildfire and was all over the European press about the Polish contribution to cracking the Enigma. So we're really proud to have the opportunity to kind of break into the dialogue, and because of our partnership with AAAS, because of our long-standing cooperation with the U.S.-Poland Science Award, and also with hosting things together, we were able to attract a group of people who not only benefit from our exhibit, but then also went on to write about it and inform the general public even more about the role of Polish scientists. And just recently, even we hosted together, or we took part together with Johns Hopkins University and the National Cryptological Museum in a conference about the Enigma that was just 2 months ago. So it's an ongoing process. We know it takes time to change perception and to change history, but we're hoping that together we can make the general public aware of the Enigma, of Marie Curie, and of the importance of STEM education. So thank you very much.
Yeah, Thank you both so very much for this dual presentation. That was premiere today, so I like that a lot. Thanks so much. And we tried to shake you up a little bit for the afternoon session with our journey through Europe from Greece via Luxembourg to Poland, and now we are happy to take your questions. Please be great sports and ask what you always wanted to know about your next research destination. We start in the back.
I would like to find out which are the 5 big companies. So good I worded by carrying their name. I knew that that was coming. Yeah. You want to know the areas or the name of the companies? Both. Okay. So, the first one is Pharmathen Pharmaceuticals. The second one is Intralot. I'm sure you know about it. It's technology, hardware, and equipment. The third is the National Bank of Greece, banks. Fourth is Galaxidi Marine Farmland in fish farming. It's the fifth is Creta Farm, meat and dairy meats. These are the ones. Yes. And according to the National Reform Program of 2016, the Greek enterprises are expected to increase their business expenditures on research and development to approximately 0.38% of the GDP by the year 2020.
Okay, thanks. Mina. Yeah, Mina, you're next.
It's more a comment than a question. It's about communication and also collaboration. So through the examples that you gave, we see that, well, for Enigma, it was already shared between English and Polish scientists, and it's fair from this journalist from the Telegraph that she gave back to the Polish scientists the discovery of the cracking of the Enigma. And also for Marie Curie, we are sharing Marie Curie between the Polish and the French, and this is great because we very often the scientists now, more than before, used to travel everywhere in the world, and we are all witnessing for that because most of us have past time in different countries. So maybe we should advertise more on that science is across the borders, and wherever you go, you will find people to work with you and share what you want to do there. So yeah, communication is a very important issue.
Any more questions? Yeah, over there, please.
Great presentation. Thank you, everyone. I apologize. I stepped out for just a minute for a call, so I may ask something that you covered, and if so, I'm happy to take the answer offline. But prior to the panel, I spoke with Dr. Zabrowska on a few programs related to direct funding for U.S. researchers to conduct work in the host country. And I was curious if the presentations from Greece or Luxembourg included any of that information or similar information. Or do you have similar programs that you're hosting, for instance, U.S.-specific students in partnerships with your universities?
Veronique, you want to start?
It didn't include it, and I have to admit I don't know, but I'll try to find out. So you're asking whether Luxembourg has a specific program to welcome American scientists or researchers, to Luxembourg. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm not aware of anything focused on a particular country, a place of origin, but I'll try to find out.
Well, I wouldn't know because even if there is, it's the information we tend to lose track. You see, if there is a collaboration between the universities. and the professors. But most of the professors in the Greek universities have done their PhDs here in the United States. So they have direct links among them. So in my experience, as long as I've been here, there have been a couple of cases. They came to the embassy, and then we lost track. They communicate between them. If they need us, there is communication. There are programs. There are common programs. But these are between the universities themselves. And I wouldn't be in the position to tell you.
We had another question there from the
Actually,
colleague from the Ukraine.
if I can add something to that.
All right.
We as Euraccess North America, we do our flash notes once or twice a month. And in those flash notes, we include actually specific European funding opportunities. So they might not know, but we actually sometimes know more than they do at the embassy because we collaborate either with the embassy itself or with Euraccess in their countries, and then they send us their fellowships or grants that are coming from or funded by the member state or by their particular funding agencies, and are open to all nationalities. So not only to Polish, to Greek, but basically to American, to any other nationality that is interested in doing part of research in that particular country. So that's kind of on a monthly basis what we do. So the programs that, you know, especially Grażyna showed, I'm like, yeah, I know, yeah, check. so we do, it's not exhaustive, obviously it's not a lot, but sometimes Greece sends us as well something. It's not on a monthly basis. When they have, you know, some fellowships available through a specific national funding agency, then we include it. So make sure you're on our mailing list. Thank you.
There was another question over there.
Actually, I would like to follow on this question. What is the framework for international collaboration with U.S. and what are the challenges, what are the issues that should be overcome, and what are the ways to resolve the issues, if any, exist? Thank you. I understand this is a big question, and Vicky, thank you so much for your comment. It's a part of the solution, but maybe other parts also involved. Thank you.
Anyone comment?
Yeah, well, Europe and the United States, as you probably know, are the closest allies in every aspect, from trade to science to people moving here and there. And now, if I understood, your question is if there is a framework in this collaboration. When I came here, the main topic of our work here was a new agreement between United States and Europe. The TTIP, the Transatlantic Trade and Investments Promotion Agreement. Well, as you know, the present administration of the United States, and that agreement, it was a framework really for a lot of issues of collaboration. I don't know if my colleagues know anything more about it, but this agreement now it's, I would say, on the standstill. We're waiting to see what will happen, as with other agreements of the United States. For science, I'm not aware. Maybe my colleague can help me. No, we don't. There isn't. Right? For science, I don't think there is a special agreement, according to my opinion. I don't know if the colleague.
I can add that we have a framework. This is science. This is an agreement about the cooperation in science and technology between Poland and the United States. And a lot of countries have the same agreement with United States. What is maybe a little bit different than agreements between countries in Europe. Here in United States, as you know, Ministry of Science or Ministry of Higher Education doesn't exist. So these agreements that are between Department of State on American side and other side, on Polish side, is the Ministry of Science and Higher Education.
Any more questions? Well, otherwise, I would like to thank the four of you for the great input, and you in the audience for traveling with us through Europe. You know, we did something what doesn't often happen when you travel. We came back into schedule, so we didn't talk about Estonia, which is a sad story, as we mentioned before, but we wrapped up the information for you of the other three countries, and so we are back into schedule, and that's not a bad thing, I guess. Thank you all.
Thank you.